All right, this is a call to order of the Bridgeport Board of Education's Governance Committee. Today's date is Tuesday, October 5th, 2021, and the time is noted as being 7:02 p.m. This meeting was originally called for 6:30 p.m. Present are myself, John Weldon, Chair of the committee, committee members Joseph Lombard and Joseph Sokolovic. Also, board member Albert Benahan is here, and from staff we have Michael Chistano. Order of the Bridgeport Board.
It's fine.
First item on the agenda is approval of minutes from June 7th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
So
Moved by Mr. Sokolovic. Is there a second?
second.
Second by Mr. Lombard. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item is discussion and possible action on district student handbook. This is Mr. Testani's item.
We put together, based on feedback and necessity from staff, administrative staff, the student handbook, or what it was previously called the Code of Conduct, which we thought was a little outdated in name and also signaled something more. Yeah. So we changed the name to Student Handbook. Had not been looked at in several years. I believe 2012 was the last major overhaul. A lot of things have been introduced in terms of things such as social media, e-cigarettes, and those kind of things. So some of those things needed to be incorporated within the handbook. Also restorative practice, SEL work, a lot of that has been done throughout the district and is incorporated in the daily operations of how we work with our students. That was not part of the Code of Conduct. And our attendance procedures were more geared toward truancy and the steps that would eventually have led in the old days prior to legislation changing a few years back to a referral to the court system for a student with 20 unexcused absences. So because those things were still codified in our policy, that's what administrators, that's what staff was operating under. And the major component of this that you will find, and we really started looking at an overhaul. The committee was made up of administrators from different schools, also assistant principals, not all principals, those that really are on the boots on the ground when it comes to putting and enforcing discipline in a lot of cases is the assistant principal. Support staff, Mr. Young, director of school social work, was part of this. Carly Reyes, our coordinator, director of school counseling. Also, Carrie Ramanaskis, prior, her position was the SEL coordinator for the district, also had a lot of input on the committee. So besides the name, as you scroll through, you will find more of a positive message throughout the document, promoting positive student behavior rather than a punitive message. I think that is important when you're dealing with our students and our families. Again, we included the procedural safeguards that all parents, the rights that they have under the law when it comes to their children. That was a major component that is not only something that we felt was important, but also should be included in the document, just as a matter of good practice and law. As you scroll through, we want to make sure that parents and students are aware of the disciplinary procedures. Again, part of the rights that they have under the law that they're not always made aware of. And then we get into the attendance. Again, we shifted away from truancy. The state has shifted away from truancy, and the focus now is on chronic absenteeism. And we wanted to start obviously first with what is chronic absenteeism. It's any student missing 10% or more of the school year for any reason. That includes excused, unexcused, suspension, whatever the reason that the child is not present in school contributes to chronic absenteeism. We still have a lot of families that still operate under the old guidance that if it's excused it's okay. It doesn't count. In reality, yes, it's not something punitive when it comes to an excused absence, but we do want to make parents more aware, and we have been over the last couple of years, of what is lost when a child is absent from school. And that's valuable instructional time and support. We talk a lot about some of the strategies that we implement. We talk about what an unexcused absence is, what an excused absence is, what a disciplinary absence is, whether that was an in-school suspension, which technically is an absence when you're removed from class for 45 minutes or more. You are technically suspended, and that needs to be documented. We talk a little bit about tardiness to school, tardiness to class. A lot of that's more geared toward the high schools. And then we talk a lot about some of our benchmarks and our monitoring processes and procedures. And then it gets into what we do, what triggers action: 2 unexcused absences in a month, 4 unexcused absences in a month, or 10 in a school year, 6, 8, 10, 15, and 20. So what actions that parents should expect when these targeted triggers kick in from staff. But the biggest component to this, outside of the work when it comes to chronic absenteeism and attendance, is discipline. We get into the bullying. We have included in the bullying section of this, the cyberbullying. We know that's where a lot of these incidents are now occurring, more so than the old schoolyard where the kid's getting picked on and teased and physically threatened. A lot of this is happening through our social media outlets. We included a hazing policy. Of course, the network email policy that all students, the sexual harassment policy. But really the nuts and bolts, the uniform policy, which, I know this was debated last year at some point. This is not going to be debated tonight, but something that I think, it could be a topic we discuss somewhere down the road. And then the appeal process. I don't think parents are always aware of what rights they have to appeal actions that are taken against them or their child based on whether it's absenteeism or student discipline. So we want to make sure that parents are well aware of all of the rights they have in terms of the appeal process. Student records and FERPA, we included that in the document as well. And then really the biggest component here is the continuum of conduct, consequences, and interventions. We spell out what we've always had in the document, the different types of offenses: a type 1, a type 2, and a type 3 disciplinary offense, what those disciplinary offenses are by category. Not much has changed there. We did add in some of the things in terms of the cyberbullying. We did add in some of the things like the e-cigarettes, the vaping, that has now become more prevalent amongst youth. We don't see a lot of that in our schools. I think that is seen more so in other school districts, but we wanted to make sure that was all part of our student handbook. And then when you get into the actual discipline, that's where we were getting the most, we really got into the PBIS stuff, the restorative practices, social emotional things that are being done, multi-tiered student support, and then the discipline actions. So in the prior handbook, Mr. Sokolovic committed X offense. This was the discipline, regardless if Mr. Sokolovic has never had any disciplinary offenses. He must be suspended for 3 days because that is the discipline for what he did. We took out must in all cases and gave may or shall. So it leaves discretion up to the administration and take into consideration the entire child and the circumstances that the offense was committed. So Mr. Benahan, for example, is consistently committing the offense. This is the 7th time he's been referred to the assistant principal at the school for committing the same offense. He's gone through all our restorative and all our progressive discipline. At this time, it may result in a suspension. But it may not. There may still be some avenues that the administration would like to try because Mr. Benahan's going through some difficult times at home. So we don't want to hamstring our administrators into having to suspend kids. We want to encourage them to work with our students, refer them to whether it's JRB, whether it's to the school social worker, the SRBI team, the MTSS team in the building. Before, it was suspended because he committed it, and I'm just going by what the code of conduct says. And we wanted to eliminate all those barriers. So as you read through the document, you will notice, for example, don't shut off. There's a continuum of consequences. So for a type 1 minor behavior, there could be a student-teacher conference simply. A student may be removed from the classroom and then at the end of the period go on to the next class because him and the teacher got into a verbal debate. It got heated. Some things were said. We went over, he worked with the social worker. Now he's going to go to class. Student may warn the student and send a notice home to the parent. Again, there's the word may. Administrator may deprive the student of privileges. The administrator may assign the student a detention. Individual schools have additional consequences based on their PBIS implementation process. And then we put a range of possible support and interventions to be integrated within the school environment. So again, this gives you a list of things that are at your disposal. A referral to peer mediation, parent outreach, refer to student support services, teach, reteach behavioral expectations, short-term behavioral progress reports, referral to a community-based organization. So these give administrators options. They give schools options outside of punitive measures to just work with students. As you get into the type 2, a little bit more major, again, student may be removed, student may be assigned. There's no more must. So now
You're saying there's no more must anywhere.
The only
discretion.
The only must are when we get to the expellable, where then you will make the referral for expulsion, and then that goes to the hearing officer, which is independent. The board does not hear expulsions, and that's where that action is taken there. But outside of those major offenses where there's extreme violence, selling of drugs, a weapon in school, it's sole discretion now, where it gives a huge latitude and the encouragement of working and implementing our restorative practices within the school buildings, which I think is the right approach. You know, it was always a tough decision to make when you were forced by a handbook to give a child a consequence that, you know, this child has had a history of nothing but good behavior, respectful behavior, good grades, and they make one mistake and they're treated as if they're somebody that causes constant disruptions in the building and in the classroom. I remember having to suspend a young lady for an incident at one time as an assistant principal, simply because the principal said that's what the code of conduct says, that you must do that. And the young lady made one mistake. She had been going through a real emotional time at home. She did something that she was out of character, and unfortunately I had to follow the directive of my supervisor. But in this case, that whole "you must do this" is eliminated.
Question?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Sure.
Let me go first.
I know, I was reading Mr. Stanley, but I have a question for you. I know, and I understand everything is you send it to us and the rules and the policy. Are the principals that follow the rules and policy, the protocol, the way it is? Why am I asking this? Because sometimes when I see if there's some issue with the students want to explain what happened in the situation, what's going on. You have sometimes some staff and principal like, okay, I don't want to hear you suspended. I feel like they have to listen to the child, the student first, find an investigation and find out, give a chance. If the student is fall, okay, we understand that, but at least give a chance to listen to students, what's going on. Because I see that and I see what's going on sometimes in the school. They can tell you, like I tell you, you will superintendent of the school, they will tell you, yes, Mr. Testani, I follow everything and everything is fine. But if you see the other side of the students or the parent, they're upset because they don't give a chance to listen to students. Second, about the bullying, it's a lot of issues too that staff and principal have to follow the protocol of the bullying. Because at the end of the day, when you find out, you're gonna say, why they don't follow the rules and the protocol the way it is? Because we have staff, we got 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5, whatever. But sometimes your staff, they don't follow the way it is. And I see it and I will inform you. And the third one is the special need have different rules, right? Because we cannot miss what you said,
Well,
because
there's
special
different
need.
procedures for students with an IEP.
Mhm.
It doesn't necessarily give them complete autonomy and not to be punished. So for an example, if you are going to suspend a child that has an IEP for a significant period of time, you must hold a manifestation PPT and have a discussion on whether the behavior that was and the offense that was committed was due to their disability. So, but yeah, I mean, the execution by different principals and different assistant principals varies at some points. But right now, without changing the handbook as it's being presented, they do have less interpretation and latitude. They are, if they follow the processes and the policy, they are mandated to give these consequences because it's in writing. So now this will eliminate that, and they can't say, well, I had to suspend them because the code of conduct says so, because I hear that often. And they're right, the code of conduct does. I mean, do you want to say you have the right not to follow the code of conduct? In some cases, yes, but this now will eliminate them having that to fall back on.
No, I understand that, Mr. Destani, and I'm not saying I don't follow the rules, but it's good to at least sometimes give a chance to listen to students, because maybe the student was right. So sometimes don't cut the student just like that, give it a chance to listen to them, and then maybe the principal say, okay, you're right, let me follow now the way it is. Do not block the student, because and then after that, it's gonna come behind, the parents and students, and we don't want that. So that's why I'm trying to people understand, and you let them know, give a chance to listen. If he's wrong, he's wrong. We cannot change that. But at least give a chance to listen to the students.
Yes, Mr. Scope.
Yeah, I got a few.
Sure.
On page 20, it says, absences could email a scanned image of an absent note. But if I just email with the same thing I would write on paper, that's acceptable. That's unacceptable, but the scanned image is acceptable. What's?
Can you repeat that question?
I'll read it on later.
No, page 20, you said?
Yeah, page 20 of 80. Emailing a scanned image of an absent note is acceptable.
Yep.
And the bullet below it, the dark bullet, current email and text messages do not meet the level of security needed and not accepted form of absence notes. What's the distinction between the two?
Page 20, why isn't it numbered?
Okay, there's actually two different pages. 20 on our,
Oh, okay, I see where you're saying.
it's 20 on our packet, and thing, I think it's got a different page on it's, oh wait, yeah.
Oh, okay, so you're saying where it says a student's illness note
Correct.
must be verified by an appropriate.
So to excuse that.
Okay. Current email and text message do not include the security needed and some form of an absence.
Just wondering the distinction, is it because again, after there's no other parent signature and email and a kid co-op could
Yeah, I could see that because it's just text.
Yeah, I think the text message,
Just a scanned copy. You've got mom's signature.
Yeah, if I'm gonna go through that trouble.
I think the emailing of a scanned image of an absence note. Oh, I think what that meant is an email. So if I receive an email from Joe Sokolovic saying my son's absent or a text message, but if the note is scanned through an email, that's different.
Yeah, I've been in violation of that one, actually. Actually lately. Okay, now, next one.
Yes,
Let's see, page 21, the next page, class cutting.
yes.
On number 2, under class cutting, classroom teacher may refer any class cut in excess of 3 in the marking period to the administrator. Why not 1? Because it could,
Because the administrator would then most likely be chasing a lot of students unnecessarily. What we want to do is encourage the teachers to be the first line of defense in dealing with the student that cuts their class.
question, all right, my son goes to school right now in 7th, 8th grade, no, 8th grade, right?
Those are a little,
He goes to homeroom, he's marked in at homeroom.
yep,
He's marked present for the day. And if he's absent from homeroom, he gets marked absent for the day, and it triggers the phone call from Power School. Now, if my son goes to homeroom and ducks out a science class and math class for the last 3 classes of the day, does that trigger phone call? When
yes.
It would.
So when we get to period attendance, is that, because most of this is done at the high school level, period attendance is based on the being present a certain number of periods during the course of the day. And if you miss more than that, you will trigger a phone call. So, but for a class cut, it's a tricky situation and it has to be verified as a cut. So I may see you second period in the hallway and then you don't show up to my 5th period class. Now, you may be at the guidance counselor. Proper procedure is get a pass from the guidance counselor, go give it to your 5th period and go back.
Right.
Does that always happen? Or you're in with the counselor, it carries over longer. Should you go and show the class?
Yeah, I'm just concerned about maybe a kid getting himself into trouble running the streets a couple of times when it could have been caught sooner.
Probably not, unless, I mean, in the middle school, yes. In the high school, it would be very difficult to catch early on. Right? If you miss 1 class a day cutting, if it's not the same class, I mean, the truth of the matter is you can go an awful long time before somebody would catch on. So if I cut 1st period today, tomorrow 2nd, the next day 3rd, then I cut 4th, then I don't cut for a week, then I do it all again. That's why they're saying the 3rd time, then you should refer that to the administrator to see what's going on.
Now, next under bullying policy,
Yes, sir.
page 28. I'm just gonna bring it, I don't really have a question about this, but I just want to bring attention to 1, 2, 3. Third paragraph, number 2.
Places,
Yes, places such student in reasonable fear of harm to himself or herself, damage to his or her property. Then I want to, yeah, okay, that's the same one. 1 second. It's like I took screenshots and I didn't write anything down.
yeah, so with that one of the things is obviously bullying has a progression. So if I go and I insult you once and you go and tell the teacher, the counselor, the administrator, somebody warns me and I do it again, now it starts to become bullying. But if the one time I do something to you, it causes you damage to any of your property, I go and I throw your phone down, you don't have to go through that progression. It could be considered bullying. Or if, again, it caused reasonable fear or harm to yourself because of what I did.
Yeah, I got you. What I want you to keep in mind is that keyword reasonable. And then I want you to move to page 62. We're talking about threatening or assaulting a staff member.
Which page?
It's page 62 and then
The type,
and then we'd be threatening and assault, that would be type, I guess, 4.
yeah.
And that's number 6. top of the page. Students are in violation of this section whenever they threaten to intentionally place or attempt to place a staff member in fear of property damage, in fear of personal injury by any show of force, or have physical contact with a staff member with the intent to cause harm. Okay, wait. Hold on. There we go. I might be on the wrong part now.
And above it is intentionally causing serious injury or physical assault to another person. That would
Or
include,
attempt to place a staff member in fear. Okay, the next thing, after staff member in fear of property damage, in fear of personal injury by any show of force. Now,
What page you on?
it's page 62 when you're on this, and then 54 the actual.
Okay.
Now, my concern is this one doesn't have the disclaimer of reasonable fear, as does the bullying policy. Because as you know, we got a lot of big different demographics between our students. We might have a first-year teacher who say in a little edgier side of town versus a Bridgeport teacher born and raised who's used to the types of activities that may be different, and they may have two very different reactions. So I think reasonable fear should also be in part of that, because you could be afraid just because somebody raises their voice, and just fear itself. I mean, it should be reasonable.
so in which part, I mean, so if there's an attempt to place a staff member in fear of property damage, or you just want reasonable fear across the board, in fear of personal injury?
Yeah, I think it should be reasonable fear, because if like a kid stomps his foot and say, "I wish you'd die," or something like that, that's coming from a 5-year-old. Like,
Isn't it-
you got a young 5-year-old.
Oh, that would never go to expulsion. Yeah, no,
And then you
that,
got like the larger teens saying the same thing. It might evoke fear. I mean, if somebody's larger, it might naturally evoke fear, and if somebody's smaller, it might not invoke the same fear. And is that really fair to the student just because they're bigger in size and their voice has more?
reasonable.
You could put reasonable in both.
Yeah,
areas.
absolutely. No problem.
And then the onus is on the person who was in fear to explain why they feel this was reasonable.
Correct. We don't have many incidents of this, if any at all, in most schools, regardless of where the teacher is from. I think you're able to then, as an admin, usually speak to the staff member, and 9 times out of 10, I don't think this ever becomes an issue. What becomes an issue is when, for example, you know, if a cell phone is taken from a student and they go and they try to go through the person to take it back.
Yeah, that would be reasonable.
Right. But again, you know, my advice is especially with the cost of the smartphones in the day and age, is not to get into, you know, a taking, a snatching of anyone's property like that, whether it's a child or not. I think having a good relationship and explaining to them, you know, please give me your phone, I'll give it back to you after class. Or I'm going to give it to the administrator to give back to you, those kind of things, rather than taking. It becomes a very confrontational situation that I think most people should avoid.
Okay, and finally, page 39, page 39/31, the appeal process.
Oh.
So 1, 2, 3 paragraphs down. Parent or student may initiate appeal proceeding when either the student or guardian feels a violation or misapplication of the student of code of conduct, policy, or has occurred. Then you go through the steps for the procedure of appeal, administrative conference, appeal to the superintendent's designee, appeal to the superintendent of schools, and then step 4, appeal to the Board of Education.
Yes, this is pretty standard progression of appeals.
Wouldn't an expulsion fall under that, because an expulsion begins with the violation of the code of conduct?
Well, not all violations of the code require an expulsion. I mean, only the most serious incidents end up in expulsion. And again, that goes to, in lieu of the Board of Ed, that power has been given to an independent hearing officer, which is an attorney, that both the board and the student, the parent has the right to present that. And then, the decision is made by those folks.
How many cases get as far as you for appeal?
For appeal, very few, if any. I don't think we get to the complete total violations of rights. I think the administration does a pretty good job in being able to handle students and families in a fair manner.
Have you ever returned one?
Never, I haven't gotten one at my level. I've had phone calls where parents felt that the decision, the suspension maybe was longer than it should have been. And I would consult with the principal, and the principal then would take some days off of suspension. I mean, that's done regularly. Like, for example, I had a parent call me 2 weeks ago. Child was here, had a situation, was suspended for an extended period of time. I spoke to Dr. Graff. He met with the principal. Met with the parent and the child. If parent and child, agreed to some parameters, child could return back to school that day. So it was cut by 80%, the suspension. So that happens frequently at the building level. It never really has to get much higher than that. The administration will drop the hammer. Parents appeal, they come to an understanding, and then that suspension usually is reduced to an acceptable amount for parents.
Okay.
And that's a good way to build a good relationship with the family as well, to show, hey, I'm not unreasonable, but I need you to understand that in the next incident like this, we're not going to have this same conversation. That negotiation may not occur because I'm giving you a break here, and let's not make the same mistake. And kids are usually appreciative and they understand, and you don't usually see the repeat discipline. I think when you don't have that negotiation, you're more inclined to see the behaviors repeat down the road.
Okay. Lombard?
John, I was going to point out that most of the links aren't working because they go into a second line and they don't stay as one hyperlink
Oh, maybe it's because of the formatting on
on the iPad. Maybe.
the iPads.
Not really sure.
I think we'll clean that up.
Yeah, just to,
When we put it online.
Okay. So as I recall,
Mr. Benner.
you have more question?
Yes.
Okay.
Stanley, how you say, Catch, you say how it start for you, the house bullying start? You say, okay, you say something, but I didn't catch.
Well, what I'm saying is sometimes the word bullying is used prematurely by some. So if I come to Mr. Lombard and I call him a name and he doesn't report it, he doesn't tell anyone. And then I call him a name next week, same name, and he doesn't report it. Then I call him a third time, for example. Then he reports it and says, I'm being bullied. Okay. In his mind, he is being bullied, not to say it's not right. By state law, he's not bullied until now. I've been warned, don't bother him, don't call him the name. Then if I do it again, then it becomes a bullying situation.
You have to say it for the first.
I need to be told what I'm doing is wrong and warned before. Now, if I go up to him and just smack him, that's assault.
Of course, yeah.
But
you have to say it for the first time,
well, you should. I mean, if you want that to be addressed. I know it doesn't happen all the time. Kids are quiet, they're intimidated. I think it's wrong. We don't accept any of that. That's why we're trying to make sure that teachers and other staff members are more aware of what's going on. This way, then Mr. Lombard doesn't have to be afraid to say something. They can be pulled aside. Hey, are you okay? Is everything all right? Having those conversations with this new Move the World, making kids more aware of their behavior. I can tell you since school has begun till now, it's not just here in Bridgeport, it's all across the country. It's been a difficult transition for many kids back to school in person. The social media has made it much more difficult. It's easy on social media to say negative things to other kids, and really no consequence. And now they're all back in the buildings together. They're seeing people who may have put them down on social media, called them names, commented negatively on their posts, and now altercations, verbal and some physical, have taken place.
And the second, and two things very fast, I know you can answer. The uniform, I say you don't want to discuss, but the uniform, we have to do something. Because uniform help a lot identify, these children in the school. But my big question for you is what we can do consequence for the parents. Because education start in the home. And then if we don't do our job, board education and whatever, the school's not doing the job. But what the parents have to be something, because parents sometimes they send to school, the kid, let the school deal with my son. And blah, blah, blah. And we cannot hear babysitting. We here to give education to the kids. I know it's not easy, but parents have to have some consequence. So I don't mind you claiming they can come talk with the principal, blah, blah, blah. Has to be something. The same way we have rules for the principal, the students, they need to have something for the, because parents sometimes
Might add like a good discussion for the Students and Families Committee.
Okay, Mr. Destani.
Families.
Thank you for your answer.
All right.
No more questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so as I understand it, there's only one proposed modification,
Yes, I'll make sure that gets,
which is
reasonable.
related to reasonable. Right, is it?
reasonable, yeah, to
fear.
the staff member, yes. Fair to, and to property and also to assault or
To
physical. Yeah.
physical.
I know exactly in the document.
So is there a motion to refer this to the full board for its consideration and with the modification as noted by Mr. Skolnick?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Lombard,
A second.
second by Mr. Skolnick. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so go on the next meeting's agenda as a first read.
Does it have to
I
have?
was just gonna say to read the whole
Well,
document.
no, you suspend it. You suspend the
Okay.
full,
But as a,
but you post it out there for people to see.
this is not a policy though, it's a,
Student handbook, right?
it's
Oh,
a
what do you want to do?
administrative, I think that might, I think that just vetted by us.
Look, I'm not looking to jump through more hoops than we have to,
Right,
but reasonably, do we consider this a policy or a
yeah, I
procedure?
think it's a policy.
Procedure.
Policy and procedure.
I think both. So to read
And I
the,
didn't say that.
No, no.
No, policy procedure.
Send it
okay, gotcha.
and post the document somewhere where the public is able to see.
Yeah, we can put it on the
Comment.
website
Yeah,
as
as part of a public
draft,
packet or something. Yeah,
unapproved draft.
yeah.
Put it right on the front of the website. on the-
Yeah, I don't want to
A
lift.
couple of copies in the meeting room.
Yeah, and we'll put it on in, then we'll send it as well to our translator. I'm not gonna have that done through Google Docs for the official document or in-house. That can go and we'll have to pay the service to do that in a couple of languages.
Okay. All right. Discussion and possible action on policy regarding live streaming of board and committee meetings. This is my thing. It should be pretty short. It's just that we don't have an actual policy regarding live streaming. And I think we just need to nail down some parameters. Are we going to say that all meetings will be streamed or only full board meetings or only regular meetings? Is there any cutoff where if a meeting is held last minute, then it's not expected that they will be streamed because there is a degree of preparation that goes into doing this kind of thing. And I've seen a couple of times where a meeting is called at the last minute, day before, and they're told, oh, and I want to live stream this. And now some hoops need to be jumped through to try to accommodate the request. And I don't want to, unduly burden the staff to rig stuff up when maybe they had something else planned that they were supposed to be doing. So we need to come to an understanding within our ranks of what we're going to do how we're going to do this? And are there certain parameters where, you know, if it's a 24-hour notice, special meeting, whatever, it may or may not get live streamed based on the availability of staff. So I just wanted to get that discussion going, see what other people thought.
Can I just add, what is, who's able to do the live streaming from your department?
So after the pandemic had hit, I've been primarily, as you've all seen me, I'm sure, been running them because it required some additional steps than what Sam Marie would traditionally always done board meetings had done. I've been training him on the process since then, now that we have the system at aquaculture that has been recently refurbished. And this is sort of jerry-rigged, but we also recently just put a new system in 305 at City Hall so that room can be utilized for the purposes of streaming and event and stuff. So we've tried to put the infrastructure in places that you guys like and that you guys have been using so that it makes it easier on us to do that. Not like when we had to plug in like cables into a soundboard and into like crazy things like at Park City that time or like Aqua before it got refurbished.
Yeah, remember? That was good though.
I think we're in a better place, and so whatever you guys decide will make it happen.
Okay.
Okay. My own personal sense is that I think it would be fair to say if a meeting is called in 24 hours, the meeting may not be streamed just because staff may not be available in that short of a time frame. So if it's something where you want to have all meetings streamed, most meetings are called, you know, with a week's notice. That's reasonable. But in the event of a special meeting, it may or may not, it's understood that it may or may not be streamed based on staffing availability. That's my own thoughts. Is there a cost associated with this? Not to get into your employment arrangement.
For me, I am not, I'm an exempt employee, so.
Okay,
for me,
there's no overtime issues here.
the rest of my staff.
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Now, the other question,
Quantify that.
the other question was 305. They did do a great job. I mean, we just have to do some painting because things were taken off the wall to make it look nice. That does require some opening of the building, security or something like that. So that's why right now this seems to be,
Because this building's already open for night class.
it's open, there's security, there's plenty of parking.
It's ready for the live.
Right, there's no additional cost
Yeah.
outside of if it's not Nick, as he says. I do think though, we should have a conversation regarding next time as well, because he did start early this morning, so I have no problem, you know, also putting him in that, but.
Right, I got a question. As far as storage fees and costs for like uploading the live stream to YouTube or wherever it's, is there a cost associated with that? And are we intending to keep them in perpetuity or do they?
You actually have to keep any recording of a public meeting forever.
Right, so
I've had this discussion in past life. I used to have to cassette tape board meetings. I
also got
I
this,
literally had 30 years worth of tapes.
we also got audio backup though.
Yeah, so are we paying for the YouTube? We do, right?
How much?
So, YouTube is free.
Okay.
There is no cost associated with YouTube. We've also started simulcasting it both on stream, which is like a Microsoft Teams thing.
Mhm.
So that it's available in multiple places for purposes of redundancy. So it makes it simpler for us to do the setup if we stream it that way. So
Do we store the video?
And is there a cost to do that?
no, because it's stored in Microsoft and in Google, so there's redundant storage in that way. So
Okay.
we don't have a cost beyond what our normal cost is with Microsoft and Google.
Very good.
Good.
That's all I got.
And
Yes, so another way you want to be sure we can keep using, like over here, any committee use our meetings, so because they have everything ready. So we don't need to go, you know, like you said, Mr. Destani, 305 is gonna be
And
security.
it's much more
Yeah.
convenient for me, but to be honest, but I think this is just a better location.
Yeah.
No, I'm okay.
From a technology perspective, this is no issue. So,
Yeah,
And I'm okay.
In terms of the-
I know sometimes parents would love to, cannot come to the meeting, but at least they can see her and, like,
Yeah,
do stuff like that. We don't want parents to say, well, no, you cannot, blah, blah, blah. So we want parents to be involved.
but if you're
fine.
live streaming, they can always, it gets posted later on, the video.
I can record it and post it immediately after. the meeting.
Okay.
either.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Hey, we're gonna be.
Okay, come over here and do it here. I'm fine
So
with
it
that.
sounds like we're all in agreement. Can I, mind if I propose a motion?
Actually, I have a question. Oh, sorry. So how is this related to remote meeting?
What do you mean?
Is this the same technology that needs to be there for people meeting?
Yeah, we have, either way, you're,
So like, for example, if in a 24-hour meeting notice, would the services not be there for someone to meet remotely?
no, you could still be,
Well, no, this is what we're just, yeah, you could still be remote.
right.
But I guess what we're saying is in a 24-hour last minute scenario, I don't want to set the stage for staff to suddenly have to jump through hoops because we had a last minute meeting and now he's not available. He's got to be somewhere else. There's nobody else who knows how to do that kind of
So
thing.
those are two separate things.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it will not be, but there's a way out. If it's a short enough notice, you need to know that you may not be able to live stream. That's a possibility. That's my thing.
So we have to write a policy about this thing?
Yeah, we need to codify it.
All right.
Is that the lollipop up? Is that a pen or a lollipop?
It's a pen. It's a pen. It's a pen. But Mr. Chair, question, like right now, I'm a student family. I would love to have my meeting live stream, anyway. Do I have to let them know in advance or just to let you know, yes, I want, let's say mandatory my meeting.
Well, no, we're saying all meetings will be live streamed.
Okay.
However, if a meeting is called in 24 hours,
And they're busy,
you may not get live streamed.
you just get recorded and posted.
That's it.
But that's what I'm a little confused with. I say I want to have my meetings,
Well, no, we're saying that,
my student family, I'm talking that's in my committee.
yeah, your committee. So you have regular committee meetings.
Yeah.
So you call up, you say, Rita, I'm having a meeting on this date, da, da, da. She's going to call them
Yeah.
and arrange for them to come. But if you contact the office and say, I want to have a meeting tomorrow.
Okay. Sure notice.
Okay, thank you. I'll
Yeah.
post a notice, but he may or may not,
I know, sure notice. I understand. Okay, yeah,
he won't get in trouble if that happens.
I understand that. I know.
We don't want to get naked.
Okay?
Or
And you already say so many times that let them know in advance because it's a process, to let them know with the people from the office and IT be prepared at the last moment.
and it makes it much more difficult on Tim and Rita to
Right.
post, to try to get staff, because again, staff they're not obligated if they're not part of the committee. I mean.
Right.
They want to come, believe me, but, and then collecting data, that's going to be more, now with data warehouse, once we get everything up and running and create the dashboards, that's going to make things much more convenient for everyone to be able to get data pulled and.
And let them know on time so they can be very on time and everything. So I understand.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So do we want to say the cutoff is 24 hours or 48?
I think it's 48, it's cleaner.
48, yeah.
It's 24, we'll get it, it's
Okay, okay, yeah. All right, so I'll seek a motion that all regular, special, and committee meetings will be live streamed. The exception of any meeting called 48 hours or less for the meeting date and time.
No, don't say it like that.
Okay, how do you want to say it? But you understand what I'm saying?
I don't, I'm trying to say, but.
You want to, go ahead.
No, the requirement does not hold for meetings. In the exception of all the meetings called 48 hours, that like excludes them altogether. This requirement does not stand for meetings
May not stand.
may not stand for me. Throw that in there, so.
Okay, all right, throw it in there.
No, doing a good job.
All right. A referral to the full board that all regular, special, full board meetings and all committee meetings will be live streamed, with the exception that any meeting called 48 hours or less not be held to this requirement.
May not.
May not be held to this, yeah, may not be held to this requirement.
I like the policy.
Okay,
May.
So,
moved by Mr. Sakalovic,
second.
second by Mr. Lombard. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, we'll put that on the next meeting. I'll draft a paragraph to this effect.
I think you gotta make it a first read as well.
That'll be a first read. Make that part of the package. Okay, there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Uh,
Opposed? Time is 8:54.
7:54.
Before. Thank God.